Hello everybody, and welcome to another NIAB Talks About video, this time being related to the winter. Yes, it's finally time that we talk about the stuff that I did during the winter of 2022 to 2023, except that's not what this is, because technically speaking, December 1st to the 21st actually counts as the fall. Really weird that it counts. It's snowing outside, it's incredibly cold, I don't know why it counts. It counts though, so remove this winter background, we're going to the fall. That's right, it's time for the NIAB Talks About Fall 2022 video. Now you might be thinking to yourselves, well NIAB, why are you doing it this late? I mean, I feel like even if this would be the time still of fall, this would technically, count more so towards winter. Well, you might be right to some degree, but is it perhaps because of the fact that I didn't really have enough for this video? Mostly because, we were working on other big videos on the channel, especially, the ReZero reviews and maybe one of those get-intos? Yeah, that might be it. That might be why I might have needed more time to actually do some more stuff so that we could have a video here. And I didn't really want to save it till the winter video. There's a lot I want to talk about. So I feel like that would ruin the winter video because that would make the winter video really long. Is what I might say, but I'm not saying that. It's still the fall after all. So, welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about the stuff that I did during the fall, stuff that I just generally want to speak about, series that I got into, stuff that I tried out, all this type of shit, like usual. And always, there's timestamps in the description, as well as in the comments. I wish there was still chapters on this. YouTube kind of removed that unless you have, I think, 1,000 subscribers. That kind of sucks. But, description and comments, you'll be able to get timestamps. You will also need those timestamps if you want to avoid spoilers for certain sections. I'm going to talk about spoilers at certain sections. I will also put a timestamp in the video to let you know when to skip ahead, so don't worry about that. But with that out of the way, let's just get right into it, shall we?
2,000 years of constant human evolution to create a hairless fuck.
So during the month of fall, we had a Nintendo Direct and a State of Play. Now, normally, I wouldn't really talk about this shit. It just kind of happens, and I mean, at most I'd do a reaction. I don't really need to talk about it too much usually. Except, this time it was interesting. Because both had shit that I really care for a whole lot. First of all, the Nintendo Direct. There was a few things here that were, pretty damn big for me. Kirby's Return to Dreamland is getting a remaster with, all new added shit and everything. Do I think it's necessary? No. It's a fantastic game, and honestly, if I were to say somebody should get a start into Kirby, right, a good footing into it, right, for the first time, I think this game's fantastic for that, along with Superstar and a few others. But I think this game is definitely fantastic for a first-time game for people who might want to get into Kirby. So if you haven't already, and you'd be interested in doing so, I would recommend this game. Or rather, this remaster. That said, as a Kirby fan, as somebody who cares about this series a lot, is my favorite Nintendo series, and I have a shitload of the games, does this remaster please me? Not really, because I own Return to Dreamland, and this is just Return to Dreamland, but we added a few things, gave it the new game's art style, and that's about it. So, really, it doesn't make much of a difference to me. It's just Return to Dreamland. I don't think I'll buy that, but it's cool. It's neat. And then, also, we got a wild announcement of Fist of the North Star Fitness Boxing, which, I'm gonna be honest, I feel like I'm inclined to pre-order this because Fist of the North Star is my favorite series in the world, and the fact that it is a fitness game for it, where you can just go through the story but do fitness, that seems kind of worth it, to be honest. I might even stream it. You might see a stream of it when it comes out, something like that. Maybe we'll play through the whole thing. Debatable on that, but we'll see. But that was certainly interesting. And then Breath of the Wild 2, of course, got talked about. And this is looking like an absolutely beautiful game. I'm very excited. If I'm being real, I'm not huge on Zelda games. At most, I enjoyed Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess a little bit. Those were kind of fun. But I'm not really huge on those games. Now, I am super huge on open world games, especially when they feel like there's a proper like creativity to them, right? There's a whole lot to do there. Instead of just, here's an open wasteland area, whatever the fuck, do something, I guess, right? When the game gives you something, essentially, right? Even if it's very minimal, they just present you with something, and now you have to figure out the endless ways you could go about doing something with that, right? I love that a lot. Breath of the Wild I love, because it's just that. It's that, but in a Zelda format, and I love the art style of it, all this, the OST is great, right? Very simple game, very calm. For the most part, there are tense moments, right? But it's a nice, relaxing game that I will usually pick up, play for hours for like 2 weeks, right? Constantly just replay that shit. And I'll have a blast. And then eventually I'll put it down like many games, and I'll just wait months to pick it back up. But it's a very fun game for me to just, pick up and play for a few weeks. So I'm very excited for Breath of the Wild 2. So the Direct had some strong stuff there, right? And I mean, that's only a few things really, but they don't always have stuff that really intrigues me. So having those few, that's pretty good. But the state of play, right? Shit. Okay, so right off the bat, Tekken 8. Fuck. Right? The just graphics of it. And I'm not even a huge graphics person, but I will say, when I see something outstanding, it hits me, And Tekken 8 is beautiful looking, and from what I can tell, this is the game. I mean, they also showed a trailer at the Game Awards. It seems like this is the game. This is what it's going to look like, and that is absurd. It looks beautiful. I really do hope this is better than Tekken 7, because Tekken 7, listen, it's great, it's fun, I can have a great time with friends. That said, it is very bare bones for a Tekken game, and I get the general reasoning why was kind of a last resort for Banco, right? This had to be their last push with the series, and if it didn't do well, they might have been fucked, right? But I'm really hoping, now that Tekken 7's done super well, and it's gotten a lot of people into Tekken and everything, along with, Kazuya being in Smash, definitely increasing the amount of people interested, I really do hope that this means that Tekken 8 will be a proper Tekken game with all the stuff there, and it'll just be a great time, and it'll look fucking beautiful. That would be fantastic. Then also, with this state of play, we got Like a Dragon Ishin. Holy fuck. I'm a big Yakuza fan, or Like a Dragon fan, right? Whatever term we want to use for it. I love this series a whole lot. There are so many games that I've wanted to be localized with this series, right? Ishin, the other game that's in the same style that I'm gonna be honest, I always forget the name of. Me editing this can obviously put that on screen. The Black Panther games. I know that sounds weird to somebody without context. That's just the name. It does not relate to, the Marvel character. It's just the name of the games. But those ones, there's a whole lot that I wish they would just, port over and everything and just give us here in the West. I do wish for a whole lot in terms of the series, because it's doing really well now, and I can only hope that we get everything there is to offer. And we finally did with Ishin. It is coming here. It is turning into Ishin Kiwami, is how they've essentially stated it. It is the same game, but remastered essentially, even though it's on the exact same console as before, but it's also on the PS5 and Series X and all that. But it's being remastered in a way, and there's new characters in there replacing some of the old ones, because there's now more characters in the series, and just all sorts of shit just being piled on there that is absolutely fantastic. I am very excited for this. This looks really good. I get to play Ishin finally. I'm very excited for that. Along with this also, this does not relate to the state of play, but I feel like I need to mention it. They showed a little bit, just a little cutscene type of thing for Yakuza 8. Looks fantastic. The Yakuza 8 game will also have a prequel to it, a weird prequel game about Kiryu. That's fucking cool. Alright. And then the Judgment games got ported to Steam, which is interesting because that now makes the statement that I said in the Get Into for Yakuza 7, the joke, that joke's now outdated. Because, yeah, it was joking about, you know, the game coming to PC and how that's never going to happen. And then it happened. So, there goes that. Luckily, I did plan on remaking that Get Into along with the ReZero one. So, I mean, hey, it's not the worst case. But anyways, back to the state of play. So, yeah. Those two games got announced, got shown, absolutely fantastic. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it's, you know, competing for me, right? The Direct and the State of Play, which is better, it's competing for me. Because, like I mentioned, the Kirby thing is not that huge for me. It's great for people, right, who are trying to get into it. But for me, I don't know. I'm not super huge into the idea of it. It's whatever. So, overall, there's a genuine competition there. And normally, I would have to, really think about which one would succeed and just win. But there's one thing I forgot to mention with the Direct that I think beats everything else that the State of Play had to show, or even just those two games in general. So with the Nintendo Direct, a lot of farming games were shown, which I know with the general joke people were making and everything, and that is really what they were showing a whole lot. But they showed a lot of farming games there. There's one, though, that was very important, at least for me. What I'm holding right here is one of the first games I have ever played in my life. This game right here means a whole lot to me. I have had a blast as a kid all the way till now, because I've still been playing it. Just absolutely spending countless hours with this game. The fact that it is getting a remaster for the Switch and people can now get into this game, enjoy it just like I did, all this sort of shit, enjoy the beautiful remaster and everything, it means a whole lot to me. It genuinely did bring a tear to my eye. I was very happy to just see it, and just hearing the OST that they played in the trailer made me incredibly happy. I would highly recommend, if you ever want to get into a Harvest Moon or Story of Seasons game, there's a lot you could choose from, but for my personal recommendation, I would say this right here. And thanks to the remaster on the Switch, it makes it incredibly easy. Now, am I going to buy the remaster? Well, similar to the Kirby situation, not really. I own the game, and also I'm not really actually huge on the art style. I kind of like this art style more than the Switch one. It still looks good, but I like this art style more. But I still think that this is incredible news, and I'm very excited about that. It does warm my heart a whole lot that there will be more people who enjoy this game simply because of this remaster.
Triplets born, the throne awaits, a seer warns of a deadly fate.
So I'm not gonna lie, it's a little bit rare nowadays that I actually buy games roughly at the time that they come out, or at least a lot of games that I'm super into, I actually don't do that as much anymore. Metroid Dread, I've still yet to get, and Metroid is my second favorite Nintendo series. I love Metroid a whole lot. Kirby, I only recently got, and that was just due to other circumstances. I didn't even necessarily buy it. It was just some other circumstances there that I have it. And, the Bayonetta 3 also came out, but I didn't buy that either. I love action games, and I love Bayonetta games, and I've heard this one's the best gameplay-wise. I mean, story-wise, I've heard it's okay, but gameplay-wise, I've heard it's the best so far, but I still didn't even do that with Bayonetta. However, Sonic was a different story, which is weird, because I'm at the point as a fan of the series where I will usually just wait until I see the general reception of, the new games in terms of Sonic games. And I will say, there was a very good reception with Frontiers. A lot of people were saying that this game was, fantastic, it's a great return to form for the series, it's the new best game of the series. And I thought, you know what? Seems pretty good, right? It seems like there's a lot of people talking some good shit about it there. And I was interested. I mean, it's an open world Sonic game. I mean, open world in quotations, but you know what I mean. So, it's interesting. And I bought it. And played it. For a few hours. I haven't completed it yet, and I do plan on doing so, of course. I'm enjoying it a lot. But, I will say this. Out of the few hours I've played, it is pretty damn fun, and I'm glad it is the way it is. I mean, I'm glad it's really good. I will say, in terms of, new favorite or anything like that, right, is it? No. To be honest, I would say if it were to go anywhere, and albeit, like I said, only a few hours played, but if it were to go anywhere, most likely it would be like, maybe the 5th, 6th spot, something like that, right, in terms of my favorite Sonic games. It's really good, but I don't think it's absolutely insane. I will say, though, there's this weird thing with Sonic where there's just certain games that are just an absolute blast, and then, we get a few stinkers here and there, and then we get another absolute blast and a few stinkers here and there, and that's just how it's felt for me for a while. The last game I really did have a lot of fun playing, in terms of, like all the recent games and everything, was probably Generations, and I think that was at least like a fucking, how many years ago now? Like 10? I think that was 10 years ago now. It's been 10 years since I've truly enjoyed a Sonic game. Frontiers is pretty damn good, and I don't think it's the same tier as Generations, and, games I hold higher than Generations, which isn't many, but, there's a few in there. There's Sonic Adventure 2, I love Sonic Adventure 2, I like Sonic Colors a lot. Actually debatable if I would put that above Generations, but it's roughly around that area, and Sonic Unleashed, I like a lot, even the nighttime stages I don't mind. But, for Sonic Frontiers, it is very nice that it's a proper return to the series, and it's still really fun, even if it can't fully compete with those games, or at least not yet. I'm really glad that it is insanely fun. I will say, the mini games in there, not sure how I feel about those. Those are like, okay. It's kind of similar to, I mentioned Bayonetta earlier. It's similar to that, where Bayonetta has mini game type of levels occasionally in there, and it's weird because it's a change of pace, and I'm not sure that I like it that much. Bayonetta did have one that was kind of cool, which was like the motorcycle level. I liked that a lot with Bayonetta, but the other minigame levels that Bayonetta had were just okay. And I feel the same with Frontiers so far, where they will give me a minigame, and I'll go, neat, I guess, but like, I don't know, this doesn't really do much for me. I do love just running around the world, though. Combat is fantastic. That's something I really gotta say. Combat is fantastic. I love it. Sega, if you can, please try to like improve on it a bit more, right? There's a few things that could use some tweaking, I would like say, but it is really good. I love the combat there. I haven't gotten to the bosses yet. I will say that much, right? I've heard a lot of people talking about the bosses. I'm very excited to get to those, because those seem really fucking cool. Sage, also, just as another side note here, Sage as a character seems pretty damn cool. I'm liking her so far, and I've seen a little bit of cutscenes later on. I think I'm really gonna like her. I will say, funny thing with her, back when the like trailer dropped with, all the like scenery and shit, and like her and all that, it was funny because I saw her, and if I remember correctly, they did not show the voice yet, or like you could not hear the voice yet. And I was sitting there and I saw Sage, and I'm like, huh, this looks like a certain other character I know, or just like, I don't know, their hairstyle and everything, the general expression on their face, they remind me of another character I know. And then I immediately heard the voice, and I sat there and I went, oh my fucking lord, fuck you. Just like, it was insane to me how correct I was there. I'm not going to go into any specifics here, because I feel like if you know, you know. I will say, I did constantly check the voice acting pages just to see if like I was correct, and it wasn't until the game came out where the dub voices were officially on the site, and yeah, I was correct. But yeah, the only hint I would give towards that without you know, giving the full context for anybody who doesn't have context, it is simply just, hey, one of my favorite series out there just so happens to have a character who looks similar, who has the same VA, and yeah, it was a pleasant surprise to see that with Sage. But anyways, I'm very excited to play more Frontiers as time goes on, of course, and I mean, honestly, I probably will play more. I just didn't really play too much because it came out in like, what, October or November. I was really busy with videos at that time, right? I was working on the reviews, like I said, and I was getting into a whole bunch of shit. I was trying to do a whole bunch, and didn't really work out well in terms of my schedule. So now I will be able to play more, but you know, at the time wasn't able to play a whole lot, so we only got a few hours in. That said though, was very fun, and I'm excited to play more. So at the time of me also watching Bleach, I decided to check out another series that I had heard a decent bit about from friends and family and all that, but also I had heard a lot about in terms of just how hard fans get fucked over. I'm of course talking about Seven Deadly Sins here. I decided to check it out, you know, while watching Bleach, which didn't really work out well, because I really started to enjoy Bleach to the point that watching a show in between it just got moved out of the way. I just focused on Bleach entirely until I was caught up. But, you know, I watched a decent bit of Seven Deadly Sins up to the 3rd season, I believe. Roughly the start of that. And the proper 3rd season, not the, you know, technically with the 2nd season being a couple of side stories in there and everything, and then there's the 3rd season, which is technically, you know, the 2nd season, all that. I mean the general proper 3rd season where it's after, you know, the 2nd season's events, that 3rd season. But here's what I will say though, with the series, right, albeit, you know, I'm not necessarily done just yet. I have this season and the next to do, and after that, right, then I'm done. But here's what I will say. The series is in an interesting place for me, because if I'm being real, right, past the 1st season, the 1st season's actually pretty damn good, but past the 1st season, it's weird, because to be honest, I hear a lot of people saying like, oh, the 2nd season is fantastic, it's absolutely the peak of the show. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't like it that much in the 2nd season. I thought the 1st season honestly felt the best, and albeit, you know, I've only seen 2 seasons so far, but I felt the 1st season was generally the best. That said, it wasn't insane either. It was good, but it wasn't insane either, and it's made me realize something about the series. This series is, from just an on-paper perspective, right, with what's going on with all the characters, all this shit, if this was packed into a super long series, right, where a lot of events were more fleshed out, better, all that, right, there was more padding to the events, this could, honest to God, be one of the greatest series out there. The problem is, everything goes by super fucking quickly. Like, my biggest problem with the 2nd season was just how quickly we went from point A to point B to point C to point D, all this type of shit, right? Because it is a constant thing of, oh no, this character's lost their memory. Well, luckily, we can go save them. Oh no, they're being attacked by the bad guys. Alright, let's fight them. Oh shit, wait, we can't fight them yet. We have to do training for Meliodas and all this. And like, it was constant, just halfway through an episode, what the main goal was completely turned around. And this happened every single episode, pretty much. There was a few exceptions here and there, but it happened pretty much every single episode. Also, the show really doesn't handle characters dying super well. characters almost never fucking die. I am aware of some, right, that even happened later that I have not seen yet, which is unfortunate, but I do know about some. But it just sucks because it's like, man, the whole point with a character death is they die, and then it makes you feel sad, it might make you cry, right, all this type of shit. It's supposed to be impactful. When anything is taken out of that, you know, could lead to a death there, or anything, it just kind of removes that feeling. If anything, it gives you the opposite. It just kind of makes you angry, because it's like, what the fuck? You know, I really like that one quote from Kaido in One Piece. I actually refer to this quote a lot when it comes to series that do similar shit like this with deaths, but also series that are the opposite, that handle deaths super well. Death completes a person, and I really fucking like that quote because I think it is super fucking true. Death is what completes a character. It quite literally finishes the whole arc that they may have had, short or long. And to remove that from somebody, it's a little weird, right? Just these 2 points overall, the rushing of events and the deaths and all that really did take down the show a whole lot. There's also a lot of weird shit in there, but you know what? For the most part, it was at the back of my mind. It was whatever. But those first 2 points really hurt it for me because it's just like, man, this could be super fucking good, but it's not that good. Like, honestly, if I did give the show a rating so far, I would probably do like a 6 out of 10. With season 1, it was probably like a 7 out of 10. I would say that was pretty good, right? But then we get to season 2, and I'm just like, it kind of dropped because it doesn't feel like we're going at a proper pace with the events. Now, that said, I did actually watch the first 2 episodes of season 3, and as much as I hear people complaining about this season in terms of animation quality and all that shit, weirdly enough, I'm not sure why, but it almost felt more intriguing to me. That might change as I go into it, but there was just parts to it that, you know, seemed a lot more interesting there. Of course, that might change. We might find out with the next video where I talk about shit if I, you know, finish the series by that point and everything. I'd have to honestly think about it because it's like, it's iffy right now for me, right? And it's like, I don't know, would I want to continue? Perhaps, but this has also been 2 whole seasons. So I feel like this is a fair point if I felt like it to drop it. Don't know that I will, but you know, that's something I'm going to have to think on. But overall, I do think this series could have really been super fucking strong in terms of just how the events could have been, right? Had they not been like as fast-paced as they were. But it sadly isn't, and that really sucks because, damn, this could have really worked out to be a really fucking good series. So, like many people, I hear a lot about, you know, popular shows and stuff like that, right? A lot of trending animes and the like that all, you know, come out with every passing season and, you know, all that. And of course, with the fall, there was no exception here. Obviously, I was going to hear about a lot of stuff that was, you know, rising up in terms of popularity. Obviously, there was, you know, Chainsaw Man. I've already read it. Great to watch it, though. I've been watching it with some friends, and it's actually really great with the rewatch. If you actually want to see me talk about it, here's a card to the original talked about video, where the original seasonal type of one, which, you know, technically is the previous one, but still, that one where I talk more about Chainsaw Man, specifically with the manga, because the anime hadn't been out yet, but now it's out, and I'm actually enjoying watching it, as, you know, it's nice to see all the details I missed. It's actually way better than I originally, like, thought. Of course I still really fucking loved Chainsaw Man, but I think it's way better than I thought. But anyways, I'm getting too sidetracked with that. Then also, you know, there's Bleach, right? Bleach, we'll get to with this video. I got a lot to say, but we'll get to that, right? Let's move that aside for now. But there was a lot of seasonal stuff that was, you know, getting mentioned and all that. And one of those things was a new show I hadn't even ever heard about, called Bocchi the Rock. Now, I saw a clip of the show, specifically of her glitching out, which will likely be the background of this, but I had seen that clip and went, damn, this show is a little bit funny, that's interesting, but you know, that wasn't enough to catch my interest fully, until I saw multiple clips and realized, oh damn, this show is actually pretty damn funny, and then I checked it out, of course, and I pretty much watched the whole thing, which I know is technically cheating. This is supposed to be a fall video, and I mentioned 21st of December is winter, and you know, the last episode did kind of come out on the 24th, but I did want to wait just so that I could give a full general opinion, you know, just to make sure overall nothing really went wrong or anything like that. Overall the show would improve, all sorts of shit like that, right? Also, I just mainly wanted to, you know, see everything, and by the point that we were going to make the video, it was already 11 episodes in, might as well just get the last one in there. But now to actually speak about it, Bocchi's a very interesting show. There's a lot to say here. First of all, I haven't really experienced many shows that are related to bands. I've heard a lot about many of them, but I've never really been interested in checking any of them out, and I still am not. But this one was pretty good, right? I did like going into this, seeing it, right? Hearing these really great vocal tracks from the VAs and stuff like that, as well as getting this general feel for, like, you know, certain band type of things, right? Like, that would be there. On top of that, Bocchi's also a very interesting show because of Bocchi herself, right? Somebody with some extreme social anxiety. Now, to a certain degree, I can almost kind of, like, relate to her. Not an insane amount. I don't have that bad of social anxiety. In fact, I don't even know if I can fully classify it as that. But it's more so just, I can relate in the fact that starting a conversation with people, for me, is difficult. More so with people that I am new to, right? If I am in a conversation with somebody I'm completely, like, new to, it's really hard to start that conversation with me, like, because, I don't know, I get a bit nervous. I'm wondering, oh man, am I going to say something that could create a bad situation here, right? This whole thing could, like, spiral down, and I spiral down from there because I'm just wondering all these bad situations that could possibly happen, and all I have to do really is just start the conversation. Past that, we're all good, and I mean, it should be evident by these videos and the like, and also, you know, me speaking to friends with videos overall, that I can be very talkative. It's just more so I have to get used to that environment. Of course, with Bocchi though, this is a way more extreme environment where it's like even hard to speak to people that she's like getting used to speaking to, right? People she considers friends and all that. It's still a little bit like nerve-wracking for her and everything. And thirdly, it's an interesting show because, you know, it's very comedic focused in a way, but also telling an actual story and having a shitload of references to other, like, series and stuff like that in there. Like, there's a lot of references to just other series, bands, stuff like that. There's a lot there that is really insane, and it really fucking works out. Like, I think all these 3 points I mentioned combined make this show really damn good, and these characters are very just interesting to see, right? They're nice, they're funny, all this, it works well with the show, and I do like that a lot. And I will say, like, I'm really enjoying it, right? This almost feels like, and I don't want to put it as high up, because I think the example I'm going to use here is Spy Family, right? I think Spy Family, for me, is the absolute, like, peak so far for, like, anime and manga type of comedy, right? I've gone through the whole manga as soon as episode 1 came out, and I really enjoyed it, and I still really do, right? I still really love going through it. That overall is the peak for me, but I will say Bocchi's fairly high up there, right? I do like it a lot, and I am excited for more. That said, I did do a bit of research just because I always like to check sometimes just to know how far ahead the manga is, right? Just to compare of, like, how much time it will take to adapt everything and all that. And the manga is really not far behind. because I think the anime ended off at like chapter 21 or 22 or something like that. I saw somewhere around there. And the manga's latest chapter is like 30 something. So that's like roughly 10 chapters or some shit. So yeah, it's not very far behind. They're at least gonna have to wait a year for another season. And then we'll most likely have to wait for, you know, more as time goes on. But, you know, it sucks a little bit in that regard, but that's fine. Obviously, we're going to be waiting a while. That said, I see 12 episodes, and usually I think that's a core, right? Like, that's just going to be like, oh, core 1 of 2. We'll get the next one in a few months or something. It doesn't seem to be that way. It could be. You know, maybe I'll get surprised by this. It could be, but it doesn't seem to be that way. That seems to just be like, yeah, here's season 1, 12 episodes. Fair enough, right? Still pretty damn good for what it's worth, right? You get 12 episodes and they're really funny. Really nice, right? Works out well. But overall, oh, and something else I actually want to mention, because I mentioned how funny the show is, and I almost forgot to mention a very large fan. The stylization of the show, part of the comedic like value there, right, is the styles and the jokes that they just kind of work with in there. You'll be able to see in the background here, but there's like more than just this, where they take this big dramatic turn with the animation and manage to craft it into something else and make a joke even funnier like than it normally would be, right? Just like normally landing. It works really fucking well, and I like it a lot. Also, I'm now realizing I compared it with like Spy Family in terms of comedy and how I said like, oh, it's pretty damn high up there. I also now just remembered the studio that's working on this is also working on Spy Family, so you know what? I guess it's kind of fitting there. But overall, this series is really fucking good. I would highly suggest it for anybody who might like, you know, more comedic type of shows and stuff like that, and shows that might have some good references in there, maybe some good like stylization, like I mentioned, like the shit you can see there, along with a lot of other stuff. I would recommend actually looking up clips, because there are some really good clips that can just show you what it is like. It's pretty damn good, and I'm excited for more, but you know what, I think I can patiently wait. Obviously the manga is not super far ahead, so I feel like it would just be better to wait. I don't feel like I need to get caught up that quickly. But overall, really great show. I'm glad this is doing super well. It's nice. I like it a lot. This is a nice ass show.
Fucking cowboy, fucking cowgirl, how the fuck are you doing?
Alright, so it's time for me to have a hot take on a series and immediately get a shit ton of dislikes. Except, it's not as bad as I make it sound. It's just I don't think some people are gonna necessarily fully like what I have to say. Now, I have fully watched Cowboy Bebop. It's, you know, taken quite a bit to actually do this, because I've heard about the show for a while. And obviously, everybody fucking talks about this show. This is like Full Metal, right? Where just everybody speaks about it. This is another one of those shows where just everybody speaks about it, and it's like, oh, it's something that everybody has to see, and it's like absolutely amazing and all this shit, right? So I'm now going to give my opinion of this, right? And I'm going to keep it generally spoiler-free because I don't really feel like I necessarily have to talk about too much, really. But to speak about the show, right? I will say, just to start it off, I do like the general vibe and the setting with the show and all that, and the messages they're kind of going for with a lot of the episodes, right? I do like a lot of that. Also, animation looks like absolutely fantastic. That's just something I have to get out of the way immediately. 20 years, roughly, right? Maybe like a bit more, obviously, but like roughly around there, right? 20 years since this show has come out, and it still looks absolutely fantastic. It looks better than some modern shit that has come out. It is really fucking nice looking. But like I mentioned, like setting, general vibe there, all that, you know, the messages they were going for with the episodes. I like this a lot, right? Obviously, I get similar feelings here, like I did with Trigun, right? And I like Trigun a decent bit, right? I like that show a lot. And I'm liking overall, you know, Cowboy Bebop, how it handles things here. similar to how Trigun handled things, but differently, right? But differently. Here's what I will say though. I'm not actually as huge on this show as I am Trigun, or as anybody else would be with this show. I do think Cowboy Bebop is very interesting, and I do like the general, what I'm going to call, Saturday morning cartoon, villain of the week type of shit, right? Or whatever it may be, like scenario of the week, this type of stuff that happens per episode. I like that a lot, right? It's goofy, it's a bit campy, all that, but I like it, right? I like it a lot. But there is a general plot being told there, and I don't know, just the way it's being told overall to me, I wasn't super huge on it. I felt like it was a little bit too little in terms of that I couldn't really vibe with it super well. Along with, and this is gonna be like, this is gonna sound bad when I say this, but hear me out fully, right? Along with characters overall, I do like the characters of the show, right? Spike, Jet, Faye, Ed, and also Ein, right? Shove Ein in there. I do like all of them, right? I think they're neat. I like them a lot. I like their overall personalities. But here's the thing. There's two kind of problems here. One, it's weird because there's not enough with these characters where if you were to ask me, hey NIAB, who's your favorite character out of all of them? I don't know that I could give a proper answer other than, well, Ed's kind of funny, right? Ed does some funny stuff and everything, so probably Ed, right? That would be my only response. Because overall, I'd be like, I don't know. I don't feel like really any character had enough building where I could truly say, oh, well, overall, I think my favorite character is like, this one or this one. I don't know. There wasn't enough there for me that I could truly determine that. Along with that, number two, characters, because of this scenario going on, right? The whole, like I mentioned, like Saturday morning, villain of the week, scenario of the week, whatever we want to say, scenario. Because of that happening, a lot of characters didn't really feel like they had a proper connection with one another. Like if I were to compare it to Trigun, right? Because I feel like that's the show I could obviously make a big comparison to, because these shows have similar elements and stuff like that and are very fucking close in terms of how they feel. With Trigun, it did the same general thing there, while also like actually, showing off the plot a decent bit. But it did the same general thing there. But with the characters there were connections being made per episode, regardless of, what was going on. Regardless of the, wacky scenario that was happening, there were still building and connections that were happening between our four main characters there. Whereas here, it feels like, yeah, they speak to each other and all this, but they don't really feel like they're properly connected, and as a result, that plus the first thing I mentioned with the whole I want the characters to have more building, it kind of leads into later stuff where there's big important moments and stuff like that, and I don't feel as attached with them and all that, with what's going on and all that, as I should be, right? It feels weird to me because it's just I do want to feel more with these scenes and everything, but I don't really feel like I can, because there's just not enough there for me, right? This might sound like I'm absolutely riffing on this show, and I do really like it, right? At the very least, right, I would give it a 7 out of 10, right? That's still good. That's still good, right? Trigun would probably get an 8 out of 10. At least I think I mentioned that before. If I haven't mentioned that before, I'd hold Trigun in a place where I'd say, yeah, 8 out of 10, right? Just 1 point above, which, yeah, I know at 1 point in terms of, out of 10 is a decent difference, but you know what I mean, right? Cowboy Bebop is still an overall 7 out of 10 for me. I still do really like it, right? I did enjoy my time with it. It's just, I feel like there were elements there that could be better for me, and I was led to believe by many people, even from what I was, told, right, that this show was fantastic, and it would, end up in my top 10, and all this shit. When in reality, 7 out of 10 is still pretty good, but that said, that is lower than my, top 20 shows. So, it's not exactly in the top 10, it's a little bit lower than that. Just a little bit, but a little bit lower than that. Which, yeah, there is a difference there. Overall, I did like the show a lot. It's just, I don't know, I do wish there was more, and I can understand why people would really like it, right? I'm sure there's stuff there that somebody else would like really vibe with super well and they would enjoy a whole lot compared to me. But for me personally, I liked it. Hello, and welcome back to the Bleach section of these videos. We're back here. You might notice some things that are here now. There's these. My opinion on the series might be just a little bit higher than before. Just a little bit. But yeah, welcome back. Okay, so we have a lot to talk about in terms of Bleach. Just to note, similar to what I did with Bocchi, I did kind of cheat here. I did wait till the last 2 episodes of the first Cour of Thousand Year Blood War were out to properly do this section. Should just be noted, right? I really didn't want to just make this video but then have it be made when like episode 11 is out, right? Like that's the latest episode, and then, you know, the 2 episodes after air, and it's just like, oh, we gotta talk about that next time. So I felt like it would just be a whole lot better if, you know, we just waited a bit and I was able to also talk about those 2 episodes. Anyways, we have a lot to talk about here. We got the Arrancar arc, we have the Lost Agent arc, and we have Thousand Year Blood War, the first part in terms of the anime, right? The first 13 episodes there. We got a decent bit to speak about, especially the Arrancar arc. I got a lot to say there, because that is the absolute game changer here, right? Should be noted, I'm going to split this up into sections overall, just to cover each arc, talk about them, how I felt, all that. This is going to be long. This is probably going to be long. I don't fully know yet if it really will be. Maybe it'll be short. But I highly suspect this will be long. This will take a bit. So, you know, grab some popcorn, grab a drink. If you haven't seen a certain part of the show, like the Lost Agent arc or Thousand Year Blood War, I suggest, you know, obviously clicking off for now and then coming back later, or rather, you know, watching the Arrancar part and then clicking off, something like that. You could also just do the first option. That's also possible too. You know, it might be better to get it all in bulk. But yeah, and if you just also haven't seen the Arrancar arc, yeah, I wouldn't recommend listening to this unless you're okay with spoilers and, you know, you're going through the series. But with that out of the way, let's just get right into it. Let's talk about the Arrancar arc, shall we? Okay, so the Arrancar arc. I have a lot to say here. Just to give some small context before I really get into it, talk about all the details, all the shit I really liked, right? I want to mention that this arc is what really brought Bleach for me all the way to my 3rd favorite series. I don't know really if I've ever properly stated this before. I might have mentioned it on some ReZero reviews, but not everybody has seen those, right? I'm sure a lot of people have, in terms of people who have been like watching the channel for a while now. But, you know, some people could be blind, just coming into this, haven't seen much of those videos, anything like that. So, it should be noted, it has become my 3rd favorite series since last time, which is interesting, because last time I said, you know, oh, Bleach is pretty good, right? I went through the Soul Society, and I'm like, oh, that was pretty enjoyable, right? I wasn't absolutely insane on it, but I thought it was pretty enjoyable, right? I was at least going to give it like a 7.5 out of 10 with the current rating. Now it's a 10 out of 10. The Arrancar arc is fucking fantastic, and the fact that this is the arc that people say, like, oh, Bleach goes downward from here, is really weird to me, because I know obviously everybody's going to have their own opinions, but from my perspective, Soul Society was pretty good, but this arc was insane, which is the opposite of what I usually hear. I usually hear Soul Society's insane, and this arc's, you know, it's good, right? But I absolutely love this arc. I guess we should really just get into it because it's going to take a while, most likely. But okay, so we, you know, start off essentially continuing from what happened last, you know, Ichigo coming back, all this. We're introduced to a new character, Shinji. I'm going to say, at first, I don't know that I was huge on him. He looked a bit doofy. His haircut also was a bit odd for, you know, like, combined with the way he looked and everything. He felt like an odd character at first, but I grew to actually really like him. But we're introduced to Shinji here and all this, and as the plot progresses, we see the Arrancars, which are like these greater hollow beings, specifically some dudes with like the rank of Espada. The Espada I really do love, man. They are really fucking cool. For a group of people in an anime, I am like, I very much enjoyed seeing them, each and every one of them. But we're introduced to, you know, a few of them here, and it's like, it's crazy already how insanely powerful they are, right? They're doing a good job overall with fighting Ichigo, well, somewhat, right? Because we have Yami fighting Ichigo here, but he's kind of getting fucked over because Ichigo, you know, does the Getsuga Tensho, all that. He's getting his ass kicked, right? Because Ichigo's used his Bankai, he's getting serious. But with this, we have the problem Ichigo was having before of, you know, the hollow side to him trying to come out and everything. And, you know, every time he uses this move, because this is more so like that hollow Ichigo's move, it creates a problem for him where, you know, he almost takes control, all this shit, which could be a massive problem for the people around. Who knows who he'll attack, right? And then we get the development of, oh, here's like Urahara and Yoriichi, and they just absolutely kick his ass until Okira just says, okay, we're leaving, we're going. And then they leave, they piss off. Ichigo is now like trying to figure out what to do and everything and all this shit, and also some of the like Soul Society people are just now there, right? They're hanging out, getting ready for what might transpire, which I like. It's neat to see them in the human world and the interactions they see, right? The goofy little interactions you get. And then some more Arrancars appear. Dudes who aren't ranked, but then there is one who's ranked who's very fucking cool, right? But you get them fighting the ranked ones. We get to see a few Bankais here, and also some of their resurrection type stuff, right? For the Arrancars, because that's what they have, is they have this resurrection move, essentially, which is like the Shikai type of stuff, although it's more equivalent to Bankai, from what I understand. And it's essentially a big transformation for them, where they take on a more animal-like form, and it makes them insanely powerful, right? We see most of them except for the ranked dude, Grumjo, who is really fucking cool. He essentially had this entire group show up here because he wanted to test out the power of, you know, everybody there and all this shit, right? He organized this group. A lot of that group got fucked over, just so he could go there and, you know, see what it's like, right? Test out the abilities of the people there and all that. And he went there to see who was the strongest, right? He wanted a good fight, because his whole drive is getting a really good fight, right? And he is absolutely fucking insane while he's fighting, because he uses his sword sometimes, but he doesn't always. A lot of this fight that he has with Ichigo, Also, like, Rukia's here, right? And she finally gets to use her sword, right? She got her powers back, she gets to use her sword. And you get to see her go off, and it's great, right? Favorite character. Absolutely love her. I can say that officially now, right? Favorite character. But then she gets just stabbed by Grimmjow and out of the fight. And now Ichigo has to fight Grimmjow. But it's like, he is really fucking cool while fighting. Because, like I said, he rarely uses his sword. Half the time he is just punching or kicking or some shit. At most, he'll use his Sero, right? That's what he'll use. But, like, for the most part, he just punches and kicks. He doesn't even give a shit about using his sword. He's having fun. He's a sadistic motherfucker. But then they leave because of Tozen appearing. We get to see him again. That's cool, right? And then we get to see Aizen in a really fucking great design. If I'm being honest, I think Aizen's Soul Society design is nice, right? It almost actually does give off the impression of somebody who's a lot more, like, you know, good-hearted and all that. But with, like, this design, he just looks really fucking cool, right? I really like this design. Especially one we'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, so Grimmjow goes back, of course, you know, gets his arm cut off because of shit that happened and everything. Like, essentially the whole thing goes down there, and now Ichigo and his group also kind of have to just train for overall, like, what's oncoming. A big part of that is Ichigo going to Shinji and his group of people named the, like, Visored to essentially get stronger, right, to master his hollow power, because that's what they've done. They've mastered their, like, hollow powers, and they've, you know, just put on a mask, essentially, and that makes them stronger. So Ichigo starts doing that. He eventually masters it, which is pretty cool, right? Now he can use a mask for, I think, it's roughly about, I think the first time limit might be like 7 seconds or some shit, or like 9 seconds. I know he gets like a little bit more later, at least I think he does, but I think early on it's like a very short amount of time. Which, obviously with the way fights happen, right, fights are super quick, so it feels like a whole lot longer in terms of the show. Like, it technically is, right, anime-wise, but like, and also manga-wise. But in real time, yeah, that much time wouldn't have transpired in a fight, right? But it's cool to see Ichigo with the whole hollow mask. I like it a lot, right? It gives him a very unique design there, right? Not to say his design isn't unique, but it's just like, it's an additional thing that works super well at giving this big, like, trademark thing almost to Bleach of, like, yeah, this is a big thing, right? Putting on the mask, all that, right? And then getting stronger. It's like, it's pretty cool. But then we get further in, right? More people have shown up in, you know, human world. Grimmjow's back, fights Ichigo again. You know, both of them are doing pretty well. But then Grimmjow just gets the upper hand. Rukia tries to step into the fight. Still doesn't fare super well. Then Shinji shows up. Shinji makes them back off, and then they fucking leave. They leave because their goal was accomplished. The whole point was to distract them here and get Inoue. Right? She was in a different area. Like, she was by, I believe, the Soul Society or some shit like that, if I remember correctly. And now she's been, you know, captured essentially, and it's a problem because, like, she's one of the best healers that are out there, right? Her healing ability is insane, and of course, as a result, Aizen wants that. There's a whole lot there, along with there's like a few more things to it. I believe there's a few more things that make her very useful for him, but overall, that's what, like, why he wants her. Now, I could understand why people would say that the Arrancar arc is like a little bit of a lesser version of Soul Society, because yes, this type of shit happens here, right? Where, you know, it gets captured, we now have to go rescue her, right? I get that. Here's the thing. I felt this bigger connection with Inoue than I did Rukia, which is insane. Favorite character. But here's the thing. With Rukia, it was cool to see more and more, right? I do like it a lot, right, with Soul Society and this shit that goes down with Rukia getting captured and all that. It's great. Don't get me wrong, right? It builds a whole lot more for her, makes this interesting scenario and all that. But with Inoue, it's interesting because there's obviously, you know, this dynamic with her and Ichigo, right? This like sort of love dynamic that's obviously not being outright told. But with this, we get a lot of interesting scenarios at play, right? One of them being this really fucking sad scene during this, right? Like shortly after the moment I just mentioned of her getting captured and all this, where Okira basically tells her, hey, I will let you say goodbye to one person. One person, you are not allowed to like tell anybody else, right? I'm not gonna allow that. I will know, right? And it's just like, you say goodbye to them, do it, you leave, right? And throughout that episode, it is really fucking great because you see her constantly going around trying to figure out who she wants to say goodbye to, right? You see her and Ichigo's close friend, who I sadly don't remember the name of. I did actually really like this character, but I don't remember their name, right? The black-haired girl, which I know is weird because, but like, I'm sure most of you know what I mean. But then, you know, we also get the classroom with like Ichigo's two other friends there, right, and all that. We go through a lot of characters here and there and all this, and like, you know, she's debating on saying it to Matsumoto because Matsumoto was staying over at her house and was helping her out, right, at like understanding a few things and all that. And it's overall like this constant, just like, who's she gonna say goodbye to? And then, of course, at the last few moments of the episode, we get the actual person she says goodbye to. And it feels like it's the obvious choice, but yeah. She appears in Ichigo's bedroom, and he's asleep, right? And we get this really sad moment. Like, I'm actually struggling a little bit to say it here without getting, like, you know, a little... I can feel my eyes slowly, you know, building up that water. But we get this really sad moment here where she's trying to say, like, you know, all the things she was possibly thinking of doing in order to say goodbye to people and all the things she's gonna miss and all that. And the biggest one for her being, like, Ichigo and all this. And then she tries to essentially go for a kiss and stops. She starts crying and, like, pretty much mentions the fact that she can't do it, right? She feels like she can't do it. And it's just like a fucked scene, dude. Because, like, just everything about this, plus what follows it up of, like, the captains essentially saying, like, oh, well, yeah, she went on her own accord, right? She wasn't necessarily captured because of, like, the scenario that plays out. So it's, like, it really feels like it's just a big, like, gut punch constantly, right? Because it's like, oh, now the captains aren't even going to go save her because of this stuff and everything. It hurts. It hurts. And also, like I mentioned, their friend, right, the black-haired girl, her reaction towards Ichigo and all this shit, right? Because she understands that Ichigo has something to him, right? She understands the general idea of him being like a Soul Reaper and all that. So she starts getting mad at him. Because she's like, you know something, I fucking know you do. And it's like, it's painful, everything that plays out here. It hurts a lot to watch. But eventually, you know, we get Ichigo, Chad, Ishida, and even like Rukia and Renji in there later, albeit. But like, we get them going to Hueco Mundo, which is essentially the home of the Hollows, Arrancars. Basically all that shit, but also where the Espada are, where Aizen is, all that. And for a lot of this, like, section, it's very simple fights overall. We do actually get the introduction here of Nell, who is a really great character. Like her a lot. We also get her, like, two friends, essentially, or brothers, whatever term we want to use there. Not really actually brothers, but you know what I mean. Pesci and Dondachaka, I believe I got that correctly. They also have a fourth one there. Big lizard guy-eyed, or like snake, serpent. I don't remember his name, sadly, but that's because like he doesn't appear for very long. It's the other two that actually, you know, get mentioned a whole lot and not that one. But you know, we get Nell here, and we get those two, and I like those two a lot. I really like Nell, though. She's a great character, and she just gets better as the arc goes on. Albeit, I do have a minor complaint regarding that, but overall, I would say it's fine for something that we'll also mention way later. But for this part of the arc, right, we get very simple battles overall. We get battles against the dudes who are essentially, I'm going to say, like, fallen Espada, who are like lower numbers and shit like that, right? They're not the Espada, right? Or like some of them I think possibly used to be. I don't fully remember the explanation there, I'm not gonna lie. But we get some battles against them, and it makes an interesting power scale here. Because Ichigo's even having a little bit of trouble just fighting them, because the way he sees it, right? And this is cool. I like that the main character acknowledges this. Is, oh, if I just don't fight them with my Bankai, right, that'll show how, like, strong I am now, right? Like, I've done some training. I'm sure I can just save up my Bankai for the actual Espada. This does not work. He has to actually use it here. And I like that a lot, and I like that he acknowledges it and says, yeah, I'm really fucking up right now. I'm almost getting Nell killed because I am not using my Bankai. I should be using it, but I'm not, right? It's like, because I'm just trying to, like, you know, be stronger than all these dudes, and yet I'm not taking that actual step towards that. We actually do get some of the Espada here. Noitera, who's ranked 5, fucking just knocks out Chad, essentially, which sucks because it's like everybody else got to, you know, progress through and everything, like actually fight the Espada, right? Even if they didn't really win necessarily, a lot of them actually got to, you know, go forward and fight them. But Chad just gets knocked out here, and it sucks. He gets treated like dog shit after this point, if we're being real. He gets, like, you know, a few fights, I guess, after this point, but really, like, he doesn't get much. He really gets fucked over after this point with the series. He does not get much, and that is a complaint I can overall say with the series, is I wish Chad had more. He's great. I really like him. But fuck, please just give him more. But, you know, so now we have some of the, like, Espada being fought and everything. We get a great one with Rukia, because we get to see the stuff with Kaien, the dude that she killed, who was the brother of, like, Ganju, and, I don't remember her name, but it started with a K, I think. Right? We get to see, you know, the brother of them, right? Kaien. And I like that a lot. I like that we finally get to see the backstory to this, right? It's really nice. It's neat that we see that now after the previous arc, right? We're getting more info on that now. I like that a lot, really. And I like that this Espada that she is fighting is pretty much fucking with her, right? It's fucking with her, and it's causing her to get, like, fatally injured. Albeit she beats that Espada, but it's like, it's interesting here, right? So Rukia gets to win that fight, albeit she's now knocked out, right? She's unconscious because she suffered some bad wounds. We also have, I mean, actually, is there any? Oh wait, there is, yeah. For whatever reason, I almost didn't even remember Ishida and Renji fighting the dude who I think was ranked 8. I believe he was either ranked 8 or he was ranked 7. One of the two. Don't fully remember, but I think he was one of the two. And, you know, that's a neat fight, right? That said, I think that fight does go on for a little bit long, because a lot of it is, how do we beat this dude? Because he's very, you know, calculated. He's like, he researches a whole lot and all this shit. And it's a little bit tough to fight him, right? They figure out some strategies, but it doesn't really work super well, and it just kind of goes on for a while. Also, on Ichigo's side, we get 2 Espada fights, essentially. We get Ichigo fighting Okira, and it ends horribly. Like, he tries to fight him and just gets hit once. He's blasted out of the building, gets hit again, he's in some rocky area, and then gets stabbed in the chest and is on the verge of death, essentially. And then following that, right, Grimmjow shows up in Inoue's, like, room area, right, while she's getting bullied by, like, 2 of the Arrancars who, you know, worship Aizen and all this shit, and hate that she's being focused on by him. And he just fucking annihilates both of them, and says, hey, you're coming with me, because I have a feeling I know what just happened, right? It's like, I need you to come with me so I can get my fight, right? The fight with the person I want to fight. And then he essentially takes her, but also before that, she heals the two girls there, just because, like, you know, it's her general personality and everything. I like that a lot, right? I like that even though these two essentially just bullied the shit out of her, she was still willing to heal them. But then we, you know, go on from there. Grimmjow gets to fight Ichigo, and this fight's great, right? Not absolutely insane, but it's pretty fucking cool. Grimmjow fights Ichigo, we see his resurrection, all this shit. It's really damn cool. And we get a moment here that legitimately did make me tear up. Like, I honest to God shed a few tears with it. And it's, Inoue doesn't know how to feel at the moment because she saw Ichigo's hollow mask and everything and thought about her brother and all that, right? With what happened with the, like, you know, original first arc and all that. And she doesn't, like, know entirely what to do in this scenario. And then we get this really great speech from Nell of, like, because she's cheering on Ichigo and all this. And she's essentially pointing out to Inoue, why aren't you cheering for him, right? Like, it's like he's trying to protect you, he's trying to save you. And she points out the fact that, like, you know, she's a hollow, right? She is his natural enemy, and yet he was willing to, like, help her, right? He was willing to help her and protect her. So why isn't Inoue also, you know, cheering on Ichigo and, like, hoping that he wins in all this? And then, of course, it's followed by her telling, like, Ichigo not to die and all this shit. And he just, you know, goes off at that point. Grimmjow gets fucked. He, like, is still trying to get up and fight. And then Noitora, once again, you know, just here to be like, oh man, somebody's weak. Whoop! Just absolutely sends him flying. Right? We do not see him for the rest of the arc, by the way. Grimmjow is gone for the rest of the arc. Very easily presumable dead. Right? But, like, now Noitora's here, and Ichigo's having a tough time fighting him. Especially because he's weak now, right? Also, Inoue is a hostage in this scenario. This is a really bad scenario for him, right? He's getting fucked here. But then we see some real cool shit with the fact that Noitora knows Nell, right? Like, he knows her, and he calls, like, he calls her Nelliel, right? And all this. She has a proper full name. I am not going to try and pronounce it, nor do I even fully remember that last name. But then we get a moment where Nell essentially regains her true form, and it is fucking awesome. Because, you know, like, already she looks pretty damn strong, she's pretty damn quick, all this. But then she's like, oh, don't worry, it'll be over in a second. And you see her, like, the back of her shirt raise up, and you see the number 3 on it. And that is, like, just sheer hype shit happening on screen, where it's like, oh my god. She's not only a former Espada, she was the 3rd ranked one. And, like, yeah, obviously the Espada aren't necessarily ranked solely on power, right? There's a lot there. But just being that high up is pretty damn big, right? So it's really crazy there to just see her, you know, true form, all this, kicking Noitora's ass, her using her resurrection, going off on him, and then the transformation ends, and it's like, oh boy, this is a really bad scenario here. Ichigo, you know, trying to fight him a little bit more and all this shit, and also protect Nell, about to get killed essentially, and the blade from Noitora gets stopped by Kenpachi. He's fucking here now. A shit ton of captains are here now, right? At least 4. 4 of them are here. And it's just, like, really fucking cool to just see them fighting all of them. You know, Kenpachi fighting Noitora and just absolutely going off. And, like, him putting 2 hands on his blade, right? And that making such a huge difference that he just absolutely, like, destroys the man, right? Noitora can barely fucking stand after that. He does, right? And he does try to attack again, but that really doesn't end well for him. But it's like, that shit's fucking crazy. And then Mayuri Just, you know, perfect matchup of the dude who's ranked, like, you know, like I said, like 7 or 8, right? The dude Ishida and Renji are fighting. Perfect matchup here of two geniuses fighting that have a very sadistic way of, you know, like, torturing and killing people. And Mayuri is like horrible to imagine, of just sticking his blade in and letting that time pass for what feels like 100 years, right? Like, it's so slowed down. But, you know, all these people fighting, Byakuya fighting a dude who was trying to kill Rukia, who I think that dude either also is like ranked 7 or 8, or he might even be 9. He might honestly be 9. I don't fully remember the lower numbers entirely. I just know number 10, I believe it's the dude Rukia fought, right? And Yami, actually Yami might have been 9. Yami might have been 9 or 10. Yami might have been down there. I do know, of course, you know, this shit later, but like, Yami might have actually been down there. Like I said, I don't really remember the lower numbers, but, so, like, okay, all these captains fighting these people, kicking their ass, all this shit. But then we get the development of Aizen's plan, right? Aizen, being the motherfucker he is, right, planned all this shit out. Actually, before that, I should mention the obvious thing of Ichigo goes to do a rematch with Okiura once he's all better and everything. Which actually, no, that doesn't happen yet. I apologize. I was almost thinking about that rematch happening before, but no, I just remembered. Coyote, the dude who's ranked number 1 in the Espada, appears, he takes Inoue, brings her all the way back to the palace. Then Aizen, you know, does this whole plan thing of, yeah, everybody who's here, right, who's stuck here, you're stuck here, fuck you, there's no way out. We're gonna kill the whole, like, you know, Karakura town, right? We're just gonna annihilate that shit. And, you know, then after that we do, like, the Soul Society and all this shit. And then a fuckload of the captains, right, essentially all the remaining ones, appear by where Aizen is and everything, right? Which isn't even in Karakura town. This is a replica of that in the Soul Society. Karakura town is fine and will likely be fine so long as this just like area is not fucked over, right? And Aizen's like, well, you know, I had a feeling it wouldn't be that easy, so here's the top 3 Espada and Okiura. You're free to do whatever you want with the woman, right? So then, of course, like I mentioned, Ichigo goes to fight Okiura. This might, honest God, be the best fight in this series. Holy shit, it is beautifully animated. I love it a lot. Soundtrack's great. It's really good. And we get fully holified Ichigo in there, which is a really fucking cool transformation. I also just, like, part of that episode where the holified Ichigo happens, I really love, like, you know, like I said, animation, stellar, all this. But there's also this visible reaction from Inoue, like seeing the hole in Ichigo and all that, and like essentially seeing him dead, right? And just the voice acting there and everything. It is fantastic. I love that moment a lot. That might be the best episode of the series. Might be one of my favorite anime episodes of all time. Honestly, it really is. But like, I don't know where I would rank it. It would be pretty damn high up, but I don't know where I would rank it, right? So then that fight essentially ends. All that, Okiura starts to understand emotions and is deaf and all this. And now Ichigo's mission is to go all the way back to where Aizen is and fight Aizen. A big part of that being Ichigo hasn't seen his sword. Everybody else has, but he hasn't. So he won't be affected by the complete hypnosis. We get a bunch of fights with the, you know, Espada there, which is really cool, right? Like that a lot. I like Toshiro having a fight against Halibel, and this is a really cool fight because normally you would think, okay, ice on water, logically from here, ice would win. But no, we get an interesting thing where both of their powers kind of interact and can counter each other, and I like that a lot. With Viridian, the dude who's like ranked number 2, right, we got a fight with Soifon and her lieutenant, which, it's a good fight, right, I like it. Viridian's really fucking cool, ability-wise, like, that is horrifying. but he's really cool ability-wise, and I also like the big skeleton design for him. That said, I do think this fight also goes on a little bit too long, right? A lot of it is just Soy finds Lieutenant running around, and then eventually she shoots a rocket, right? Like, the rocket's cool, right? I like that being her Bankai. I like her Bankai being something that is not at all related to a stealth unit, a fucking missile, but, you know. Coyote's fight is pretty damn cool, also, right? I really like, essentially, the children's game being played there, right? It's pretty great, as well as, you know, the incentive to make him fight, and all that. And also, one of, like, you know, the two of him, like, Coyote and Lillinette, I think is their name, something like that. The fact that she, you know, also counts as number one, but also she is his weapon, she's his gun, really cool. I also love the, like, wolves, or I guess coyotes, right? I'm not entirely sure if it's actually, like, supposed to be coyotes, which would make sense, but they do actually look more like wolves and everything, so it might just be that. But I love that move, that shit's really cool. I also just really love, like I said, like Shunsui doing the whole children's games and all that. Visored showing up, really fucking great, right? They make a really good entrance. I also did actually forget to mention, shortly after the whole Aizen plan thing, we get the backstory with Visored and Aizen and Urahara, and I love this backstory, right? This backstory is really fucking good. I recently just went to rewatch it because I enjoy it that much, and I'm like, fuck, I want to see it again. And God, it's just such a good backstory. I really like that one. But of course, they show up here. I will say, actually, two things, right? Because these relate to each other. One, the way that backstory ends with all of them leaving, right? This big, like, action shot of them leaving and all that. Really fucking great. I love it a whole lot. And then them showing up here is the perfect follow-up of just, like, raw excitement. Of just like, oh shit, here they are. They're, you know, the song is playing the OST, right? That is associated with them. I love it a lot. We get to see them fight. They absolutely go off here, right? Berrigan, dead. Coyote, dead. Albeit, he was dead via Shunsui. Hallibell, stabbed by Aizen. Little bit weird, but, you know, she just gets fucked over. Mostly because Aizen realizes, like, you know what? Number one's dead. Number two's dead. This really isn't gonna amount to much. Let's fix that. So, yeah, he just fucking stabs her. But then we get, you know, the backstories, like, relating to all of them, as all of them are dying. And of course, you know, we get Hallibell's right after that. But also we get a really fucking raw quote from Aizen of, "Don't ever make me draw my blade for the likes of you again," right? When she tries to attack him shortly after, and then he just slashes her again. It's fucking awesome. But then we get the actual fight against, you know, Aizen, Tozen, Gin, and this is really great, right? Because Komamura plus Shuhei, right? They get to fight Tozen, and this fight is so good, man. I was expecting this, and, you know, we see more of the backstory regarding Tozen and shit, and it's just like, it's such a good fight, and it ends with, like, this great moment where, like, throughout the fight, right, he felt like, you know, a lot of the world was disgusting and everything as he was, like, transforming more and more. But then by the end, right, he can kind of see and everything, and, like, there's some things he's regretting and all that. He's, like, apologizing a little bit, and, like, overall, you know, he's become human again, right? Or I guess he wasn't necessarily human to begin with, but you know what I mean, right? There's a human side to him that's there at that moment. And then he gets fucking killed by Aizen, and Komamura's just, like, absolutely upset, right? And then Ichigo shows up in this moment, like, he's finally here, and he is, like, just about to blast Aizen, and then he does, and it results in nothing, because he's, like, he hesitated a moment, right, and all this shit. He was worried. And pretty much everybody there now is trying to protect Ichigo. Along with this, also, in Hueco Mundo, Yami's back. He's now the ranked 0 dude, right? He was actually the strongest of them all, in reality. And I do like this, right? I think it's interesting. It's an interesting twist. But I will say this part is like a lot of this is just like, oh, here's like Rukia, Chad, Renji, Ishida. I actually don't even remember if Ishida is here at the moment. I think he's with Inoue. Which also, by the way, Ishida and Inoue don't really have much in this arc after that, you know, qualified Ichigo moment, which is fine for me, right? I feel like some people would view that and think, well, that kind of sucks, right? Because, like, they should be involved in this, especially Inoue. It's like, I feel like this is fine, because a big part of this arc was Aizen, right? It was getting to Aizen, it was fighting Aizen, all this shit, it was defeating him, right? So I think it's fine that there's a split in the middle, where it's essentially just, you know, here's the Inoue stuff, here's the Aizen stuff, right? There's like two plans going on here. The plans have to be fulfilled, all that, right? I think it personally just works pretty damn well. But, you know, from here, we get like a Renji, Rukia, Chad, all them fighting Yami, and then it turns into Byakuya and Kenpachi fighting Yami. And like those three just being there, right? But then we like back to, you know, Soul Society. Everybody versus Aizen, really not turning out well. And also Gin's there, of course, right? He stabs Hiyori and just like cuts her in half. And it is crazy that she lives that, albeit, you know, Unohana was there, the healer dude of Visored was there, right? They had some people there, right? But the captains and all this shit, like, all of them are just trying to fight Aizen to no avail. He is fucking with them. He makes them stab Momo, right? Or rather, he makes, like, Toshiro do it. And that just, you know, sets everything off. He is just massacring them until he gets to fight Yamamoto. And this is a dangerous fight for him. Except he made, like, one of these Arrancars and stuff like that, right? He made this dude called Wonderwise, which reminds me a whole lot with the way he looks, blonde hair, blue eyes, all this, and also, like, the way he speaks and all that. He reminds me a whole lot of a certain ReZero character I know. But he's here, and he just absolutely, like, you know, absorbs all of Yamamoto's flames, essentially preventing him from using them, right? And he's beating down on Wonderwise, by the way, because, like, even without the flames, he's still strong, right? He's still the captain commander, and it's really fucking cool. But he does get fucked over here, to the point that he loses an arm, right? Albeit he does it so he can, like, hurt Aizen, and Aizen doesn't necessarily get hurt by that, but, you know, he moves out of the way, and then Ichigo blasts him, and he does actually hurt him this time. And now it's like, okay, it's Ichigo versus Aizen, which is, you know, a tough battle. But then all of a sudden Ishin shows up, you know, right before Aizen was about to say some shit, and he kicks Ichigo off the building that they're on, speaks to him a little bit, right? And their overall plan now is, okay, we have to fight Aizen and Gin, both of us, all of us. Urahara's also here, and so is Yoriichi, and we get a really cool fight of all three of them versus Aizen, while Ichigo tries to fight Gin. And throughout this, with the exception of the Hiyori moment, we see a lot with Gin, where he's, like, very mysterious. He always has been, since, you know, Soul Society arc. But with that, right, with that arc and also this one, the way he said shit and everything was very ominous, because it did feel like there was more to it. And, you know, just, we'll save that for now, right? We're going with the actual timeline here. But Yoriichi, Urahara, Ishin, they get their ass kicked, right? And Aizen's, like, fusion with the Hogyoku, right, inside of him, you know, getting more and more built, right? He's fusing more and more with it. We get one of the coolest designs here for him, where he has, like, long hair, like, slicked back and everything, and his, like, eyes are a different color, and all that shit. I like that design a lot, right? And now he's headed for the actual Karakura town, because there's nobody left to oppose him, other than Ichigo, but Ichigo's just, like, on the floor right now. So they leave, right? And he also mentions, like, oh yeah, don't worry, I'll be back here to kill you and also the others, right? I'll make sure they're dead. I'm just gonna go handle that town for right now. But then, of course, we get the progression of they go through the, you know, passage from, like, the Soul Society to the human world, and the big cleaner type of thing that comes through, Aizen just obliterates to show off his power, right? To show off how powerful he's become. Because this is something that nobody's been able to do before. So him being able to do that is huge. But then they make it to the, you know, actual Karakura down, absolutely just, like, causing havoc there. Not necessarily an insane amount, right? But people in his presence are getting fucked over. With Ichigo's friends being there. And something else that I'm very excited to mention, but I do want to mention, you know, beside that, we have Ichigo's dad trying to train Ichigo to learn the final Getsuga Tensho, which I knew about the whole time, right? The transformations in Bleach, I did kind of know about the whole time, but this one, I really love the design of, right? Fantastic design, but it's cool, right? I like that we've opened up a space for a hyperbolic time chamber type of thing, but it doesn't feel as bullshit as a hyperbolic time chamber, where it's like, oh no, we've lost to the villain, time to head to the room, right? It doesn't feel as bullshit as that. It feels more like, hey, we just so happen to be lucky because he was really fucking cocky and really wanted to show off, and now for the time being, we have this space to just do this shit, right? To train. And, you know, that's what they do. But back with Aizen, Don Kanoji, I believe is his fucking name, one of the best characters of the first arc, shows up here, tries to fight Aizen. That's real great. Matsumoto shows up, starts talking to Gin, all this. She goes somewhere else to fight Gin. Gin kills her, but he actually just knocks her out. Back to, you know, Ichigo's friends, right? They're running away. All this type of shit. And then, in the middle of all this, right, Gin stabs Aizen and it reveals that his Bankai didn't involve, you know, his blade speeding up or the range or anything like that. It involved a little chip that he had on it that essentially could just fucking poison you as soon as it was, like, you know, activated and all this shit. And he activates it on Aizen, effectively killing him, right? And then, you know, grabs the Hogyoku, rips it out, runs away, right? And he gets fucked over immediately because the fusion is still happening. Regardless of it leaving, the fusion is still happening. And Aizen appears right where he is, slashes him, basically just kills him. Matsumoto shows up, right, because she was just knocked out. We see a bit more with her past and everything, and, like, it's basically revealed here that this entire time, you know, the way Gin was acting, right, the ominous shit he said, it was more so just because everything that Aizen essentially had obtained, right, regarding the Hogyoku, a lot of it was at the result of injuring Matsumoto. So he actually planned ahead, and he tried to get, like, into, you know, the ranks of being his lieutenant, right, of being Aizen's lieutenant. And it worked. He made it. But, you know, sadly, we got this outcome. And just as Aizen's, you know, about to be like, okay, well, time to also finish her off, Ichigo shows up, right? All of his friends are there and everything, so we get some great reaction there. Along with the dude who had an afro way earlier in the arc. He's just dude that showed up as a Soul Reaper there. But we get Ichigo showing up with possibly the best design he has fucking had in this series. It is insane looking. But we get him showing up with, like, you know, the Zanpakuto, or, like, I guess Bankai, chains wrapped around his arm and everything. I think it's called, like, the Dangai Ichigo design, right? Because the Dangai is the area where they were training. He grabs Aizen by the fucking face, which is really fucking cool, and just drags him somewhere else. They, you know, go there, they have a really cool fight. Ichigo is just, like, fucking with him, right? Essentially, he's just showing off that, like, yeah, no, you ain't shit anymore. He tries to do the full chant of, like, Hado 90, right? Like, the Kuro Hitsugi. It results in nothing. Ichigo just goes and slabs the whole thing away. And we got one of the coolest to be continued screens ever of Ichigo, you know, taking his sword and just slashing Aizen, and like the blood kind of making the perfect area for the to be continued. I love that a lot. But then, you know, the fight progresses. Aizen makes another you know, fusion. It's essentially like the full proper fusion almost, right? And he's just trying to absolutely overload Ichigo with attacks and shit like that. It still results in nothing. Ichigo transforms and, you know, like, is ready to use the final Getsuga Tensho technique. And we learn a lot more about it because it's like, oh, this is a Hunter x Hunter style scenario of, yeah, if you use this, you'll lose all your powers, right? This is bad for you. And that's essentially, you know, what happens is he uses it, right? Big slash towards Aizen, while Aizen's freaking out because he's like, there's no way a human could be this much stronger than me. That absolutely obliterates him. Except he's still alive because of the insane regeneration and all this shit of the Hokuku. But like, it is a very powerful attack. And then he gets fucked over because he's weakened to the point where Urahara's Kido can work and it seals him away. And then, you know, we get the conclusion of Ichigo's in a real bad state right now. He's, you know, passed out, all this shit, right? He's losing his powers. It's real bad for him. We see a lot more, like, with other people. We see that, you know, Matsumoto real sad afterwards, and that shit sucks. But overall, right, because that's the general finale of the arc, is like, yeah, Aizen's sealed away now, right? He's in the prison area. He can Central 46 and all that. Overall, I will say, this arc is, like, fantastic. There's so much shit as it goes on that makes it better and better that I do really love it. And it's just, like, crazy to me that this arc is, to some people, not that insane, right? I think it is really fucking good, right? I could understand, right? Obviously, some people aren't gonna view it the same way and everything, and that's fine. It's just, like, more so, I don't know, this arc is absolutely fantastic. Anyways, I guess time to move on to the Lost Agent arc. Now, the Lost Agent arc, I'm going to keep this overall brief because I don't feel like an insane amount happens here, right? There's some good stuff here, but this is very clearly kind of a lesser arc, right? We get the introduction of the Fullbringers, right? Who are people who have manifested, like, powers via, you know, some of their favorite things and all that, right? This type of shit. And we meet, you know, our main man, Ginjo, who used to be a Soul Reaper and all this shit, right? Which, I think at the time, you don't really know that, right? But it's, like, something you learn about later. Or rather, substitute Soul Reaper, right? And with this, we get this progression of, like, oh, Ichigo and Chad there. Ichigo, you know, gets a full bring power and stuff like that, right? He makes progression via that. But Chad's just kind of there to help out and learn some shit, right? And all this, because there's some interesting stuff happening with stuff like Ichigo's dad, right? And Urahara and all this, right? Like, there's some questionable things happening there. Like, Ichigo doesn't know everything about his dad, which he wasn't lying. There is some things, right? Obviously, we can't get into that yet. But, so, there's a lot of interesting shit here, but I will say, a lot of the arc early on is just, hey, here's Ichigo training with these people, right? And it's weird because this is like a 20-episode arc, but a lot of it is just that. And, you know, occasional points to some big stuff, like the main other villain, whose name I feel like I can overall remember it. Like, I think it starts with a T, I think. But I constantly just forget it. I like always see it, I remember it, and then I just forget it when I actually have to, you know, think about it or mention it. But he has the ability to rewrite people's, like, memories and shit, right? Implant himself into there. And he does that a whole lot throughout the arc, and fucks a lot of people over. And it does create a moment I really fucking like, right? I really love this arc towards the end, because we get a moment where he's rewritten so many of the memories of people that, like, matter to Ichigo, that it is just like a fucked scenario for him now, right? The only person he has is literally Ginjo, because all the other Fullbringers are also fucked over. And then, you know, Ginjo gets stabbed by him, but he's fine actually, which is weird, because it's like, wait, why is he fine? Maybe it just hasn't gone into effect yet, who knows? But then Ishida shows up, who earlier in the arc got injured, and it was in the hospital and all this, right? And he's like, it looks as though he's gonna attack Ichigo, but then he points out that the man he got attacked by is behind Ichigo, who just so happens to be Ginjo, whose entire plan was literally just, hey, I want you to rewrite my memories so that you are an enemy to me and not an ally, and then later you will, like, you know, while fighting me, you might be able to stab me again so that those memories can come back, right? Perfect scenario for all this shit and everything. And it makes this, like, you know, really big twist of, oh shit, Ginjo was a villain, and it takes Ichigo's full brain powers, all this. This is a really bad scenario for Ichigo until Ishin, right, and Urahara show up, and it's like, oh no, have they been rewritten too? And then he gets stabbed, and we see it's by Rukia, which is a perfect, you know, just loop since the original series, right? Perfect way to give him his powers back, and it's like it's the combined powers of like all the captains and shit like that in the Soul Society and all that, and she just stabs him with it, and just like the start of the series, he gets his powers back. He actually has new designs for like Zangetsu, and Tensa Zangetsu is slightly different. It was different from the Arrancar arc, slightly, right, because of the whole chains thing, but here we really see it, where, specifically with the manga, I think the anime doesn't have this, and you might have even seen it earlier with the intro to this section, but there's like a piece in the middle that isn't there. I think that's neat, right? It's a neat little change. It's a small one, but it's a neat little change, right? And now we got a like shit ton of people from the Soul Society, like a few of the captains and their lieutenants fighting, you know, some of the Fullbringers and all that. And then we get Ichigo versus Ginjo, which it's really sad to say that, like, you know, the fight that Byakuya gets is way cooler than Ichigo's. Ichigo's is really cool and it's well animated, but it is so short. It is like 2 minutes. It gets resolved at the start of the last episode, like the first 2 minutes. It is over, right? Ichigo just absolutely overpowers the man. But then, you know, we get the overall conclusion to all of it, right? Everybody goes their happy little way, right? Ichigo has his powers back, yay, all this. And really, that's the end of the Fullbringer arc. It's pretty cool, right? It's okay overall, I would say, like, the middle of it, right? I actually like a lot with the first half being very school-related and, like, job-related, giving us a real sense of, like, for these characters and shit like that. I like that a lot. And I like the last bit being very, you know, twist-heavy and, like, just crazy and all this shit. I like that a lot. I just do wish the middle part was better, but it's very clearly, like, an in-between for, you know, the Arrancar arc and then the finale of the series. And speaking of which, yeah, let's move on to that, shall we? So, 1,000-Year Blood War, at least the first core of it. Holy shit. Okay, so there's like 13 episodes here, but the amount of shit that just happens, right? First episode, it's crazy, because just right off the bat, some insane shit already happening of, oh shit, here's these dudes with Quincy-like weapons and all this, and there's this dude who's sitting there in the big chair that looks a lot like Zangetsu, and all this shit, and like they're trying to do something with like bankais and all this shit, right? It's really crazy right off the bat. They also give a really great, like, you know, welcome back to a lot of fans and everything. And even though I got into the series, you know, this year, even though I literally finished the original series like 3 or 4 days before episode 1 came out, it still was very fucking great to see, you know, like this overall welcome back they were giving with like #1 playing and all that. But, you know, as the episodes progress, we learn a lot more of the situation going on. You know, we get Nell showing up again. She finally gets to be important again, right? Took a while, but she's back. And Hueco Mundo is just getting fucked over by some dudes, right? Halle Bell's the new leader, which is really cool. She's not dead. I guess that makes sense. She only got like a few, like 2 slashes or something from Aizen, albeit that's Aizen, but like still. You know, we get some interesting developments here. With, you know, Ichigo going there, seeing all these Arrancars and shit like that getting just absolutely slaughtered. And now he has to fight the dude there. And, you know, they fully realize, like, oh, our enemies are Quincy's, right? These are, like, you know, the people who have just been essentially extinct for a while. There's a lot of information just, like, relayed about all this shit and everything. Like, how Yamamoto failed to kill, like, you know, their king so many years ago and all this shit. And then they, like, you know, start sieging war on, like, the Soul Society just a few days early, right? And now we have, like, people trying to deal with that, but they're getting fucked over. Bankais are getting stolen, and Byakuya gets used against him, and he's just brutally injured after that. And then Yamamoto, you know, after what happened with his lieutenant, is pretty fucking pissed, and like finds the dude who is using his lieutenant's Bankai, and just fucking annihilates him in 1 slash. And now he has to go fight Yuhabaha, right, who is the, like, Quincy King, right, he's the leader. And it's a really fucking cool fight here. I would almost say this is, like, rivaling the Ichigo versus Okiura fight. It's really fucking good. And just throughout this fight we get to see his Bankai, which is really great, right? Very glad we get to finally see his Bankai. It makes sense why we see it, though. He dies. He dies by the end of the fight. That hurts a whole lot. He gets fucked over though because Yuhabaha is essentially utilizing a dude who could essentially copy his, like, memories and all this shit, right? Who essentially copied it off him, right? So that he can mimic himself as Yuhabaha. And in the meantime, he was talking to Aizen, and Aizen pretty much just pointed out how much of a joke he was for trying to request his help and all this shit, right? And then, you know, he annihilates Yamamoto. Ichigo shows up here after a fuck ton of people are just eating shit, right? We get a really great entrance from him where he just annihilates one of these stern riggers who's trying to, like, you know, announce his name and all that. And Ichigo's now talking to Byakuya and just getting absolutely pissed at, well, like, the fact that he's about to die, right? And, like, Byakuya's been... He essentially feels super ashamed over what's happened because he's led a bunch of people to their death. And now he can't even, like, stand or anything. He has, like, no strength left and he's about to die. We get a really great fight from Ichigo against Yuhabaha, where you can feel Ichigo's rage here, like, especially with the voice acting and the animation and all that. It is great, right? Albeit, it's obvious he doesn't stand a chance, and he doesn't, right? And then we find out that Ichigo has Quincy blood in him because of his mother. His mother was a Quincy. That's a real big fucking shock. I guess to a degree it does make some sense though with the way they showed off, like, his backstory with how his mom died and everything. There's some things there that do, you know, make it seem like she could see Grand Fisher. But then we go, you know, more into it and all this, and it's like, oh, some people are recovering, right? Rukia and Renji are going to be fine, they're going to recover. Byakuya is fine, he's not actually dead, but he is comatose at the moment, and so is Kenpachi, who tried to fight Yuhabaha and just got absolutely fucked, right? And then we meet Squad Zero, who are, like, you know, some interesting people, but they show up here, and they are essentially the people supporting the Spirit King, the dude we've heard about a decent bit throughout the series, right? And then, you know, we get an interesting thing with Urahara, where, you know, we see him, he's completely fine, despite, like, you know, receiving some injuries and shit, and, like, so is Inoue and Chad, who also received some injuries. But they're fine, they're all good. And then we get to see somebody trying to open the curtain and talk to Ichigo, and it's obvious who that is. But, yeah, it's certainly interesting to see them. But then Ichigo goes to where, like, you know, Squad Zero is and everything, tries to, you know, do all the tasks that he needs to there in terms of, like, healing and all that, and the water that's there, right, along with the others, right, and, like, fixing his spiritual pressure, getting a new Zanpakuto, which he essentially fails, right, in that regard and everything. And then he's sent to learn about his past and all that, and his dad starts telling him about his past and how he had met his mom and all this in the scenario that happened, and how she was bit by a hollow, and like that was essentially infecting her in a way, right? Like hollows are horrible for Quincy's, right? But like the whole plan Urahara had, right, that he came up with, would make it possible to save her should, you know, like Ishin be willing to become a human, like because there's a whole thing there and everything, and he, you know, agrees despite barely knowing Masaki, which is, you know, Ichigo's mother's name. By the way, also she has Kurosaki as a last name and not Ishin. Ishin's last name is Shiba, which is, you know, the last name of Ganju. Like I said, a person named with K that I don't fully remember. I think it's a K anyways. And Kaien, right? That's really fucking huge, because that makes a big connection for, you know, Ichigo and Rukia. Right? It makes an interesting connection there that they probably don't even know about. But that's neat to see that it's his mother that had that last name. But you know, we move forward with that, and we learn that she was essentially trying to, like, at the time of her death, she was trying to fight Grand Fisher, and she was the type of Quincy that, like, you know, Yuhabaha and all of them are and everything. But she got fucked over in this moment, because the whole thing when he resurrects is he essentially takes back the powers of, like, Quincy's who are, like, impure, essentially, right? Not worthy of their powers and shit like that. And that takes out the, like, blute vein that Masaki has, and that ends up killing her, right? Because she's trying to fight Grand Fisher. She gets fucked over here because she doesn't have the protection that's there anymore. And then, you know, it's a big, like, interesting thing for Ichigo to learn, but it does tell him that his mom's death wasn't his own, right? That's something that's been weighing him down a whole lot. And it's an interesting, you know, sigh of relief for him. Then he's, you know, ready to go back. He's ready to finally go back and try to get his proper Zanpakuto. He goes back. The things that are there that essentially, you know, make Zanpakutos all start kneeling and make a path for him. And he walks all the way until he sees one that essentially resembles, like, the hollow Ichigo that we've seen so many times. And with this, like, shortly after, we get, you know, the stuff regarding... Actually, before I even talk about this, I almost forgot to mention, very stupid of me, almost forgot to mention, Kenpachi. I brought him up earlier. He gets to fight Unohana, because Unohana, big shock, like, reveal, but she was actually the first Kenpachi. Which, if you go back and watch, like, you know, some of the anime and everything, and, like, some of the clips and all that, it makes a lot of sense because of what the way people act towards her and all that, right? Like, it almost feels like they're a little bit scared of her and all that, and it finally makes sense because of this. He does end up killing her, though. Right? We get to see her Bankai, which is cool, and she was actually part of the, like, you know, obviously the first, you know, Squad 13, all that, right? She was part of that as a captain, right? Obviously first Kenpachi, but still. But she does get killed here, right? And Kenpachi presumably now knows his Zanpakuto's name, right? And, like, now, anyways, going back to what I was saying with Ichigo's Zanpakuto and all that, it's being forged, but at the time of it being forged, he's being told that he has to say goodbye to Zangetsu, because this person that he believes is Zangetsu, like, metaphorically, right? This person that he believes is Zangetsu isn't Zangetsu, but, and I know, like, this feels a bit obvious with the way, you know, they design Yuhabaha, but it's Yuhabaha. Essentially younger and all that. It's like, it's the Quincy part of Ichigo interacting with himself, or, like, interacting with him. And it's, he explains here, right, while, like, talking to Ichigo, specifically Yuhabaha, or this past version of him, he explains to Ichigo that he does wish Ichigo didn't become a Soul Reaper, because that would mean he'd have to kill him, and all this stuff, right? They would become enemies, and all this. But he mentions a whole lot that's really great, that leads into a moment where he leaves, like, the sword he has there, despite disappearing, and That's Ichigo's Zangetsu. And then we get Ichigo, you know, pulling the sword out of the fire, like, in the middle of it being forged and all that, and everything, although that, like, essentially makes it, you know, truly complete. And he now has two, you know, both kind of representing, you know, Yuhabaha and, like, the Hollow Ichigo and all that. Which, by the way, the Hollow Ichigo was the one, of course, who was trying to protect them the whole time. I got the general feeling of that as, you know, we went on and we saw the, like, younger Yuhabaha, which I know is, like, you know, that's him, but, like, there was a sense there that it's, like, I don't know, he does gain that hollow type of transformation later on, and also just, it's weird, he's never really acted too much out of place and everything. It's, like, it's overall been Hollow Ichigo, you know, protecting him, and all that, but we get this really cool, you know, moment where it's playing number one, he has both Zanbak toes, right, like, and you know, now we're just ready. Now we're ready for the next war that will be oncoming. And that's all we have for these 13 episodes. And it's really fucking great. There's a lot of really great shit here. And I do love it a lot. And it's just like already 1000 Year Blood War is already insane, right? And the anime's adding stuff to it, right? Because the manga's, from what I understand, different. The anime's actually adding stuff and making it better because Kubo essentially had to rush it a bit due to health issues and stuff like that. So this is the proper 1000 Year Blood War type of stuff, which is really great. And yeah, I guess that's it for this Bleach Journey section for this video. This certainly did take a while to speak about, but yeah, we're here with the you know, full part of this stuff, and that's pretty nice. I will say, you know, the next batch comes out in July, and with the way we do these videos, it would likely be that we would have to wait till the fall one, because that would probably be when the last episode is, to do the next proper Bleach Journey. Two things. One, I've been reacting to the 1000 Year Blood War episodes. If you would like, here's a card for the reaction channel. But I've been reacting to the 1000 Year Blood War episodes, and I do enjoy it a lot. But waiting till July for a series that I really enjoy, it's a lot, right? You know, sometimes I'm fine with it, right, for animes, but this is a really big thing for me, and it's a lot to wait till July, even if that is just like less than a year. That said, 7 months, right, we're doing these type of videos, that's at least 2, but like I said, because of the fall one, 3 videos where essentially we won't have like shit to say about Bleach, right? We'll have the winter one, we'll have the spring one, we'll have the summer one. We'll have nothing to say about Bleach in any of them. So I won't lie, I did shortly after watching that episode take the immediate first step towards actually doing a Bleach Journey section for the next video. Now that said, the anime's adding stuff, right? So I'm still going to watch the anime, give my thoughts on, you know, how things might have been animated and all that, and the stuff they might have added. Right? I'll still do stuff there. But I will say, next Bleach section, it's just going to be me talking about 1000 Year Blood War, the manga, like the full thing, right? We will technically speaking be done, albeit obviously we might fully, you know, wait for the anime and all that, in terms of just like properly being done with the Bleach Journey sections. But yeah, this was quite long, but quite fun. But I hope you've all enjoyed this fall 2022 Talks About video. I guess, you know, by the time we're here next time, it'll be 2023, which is pretty interesting. That's an extra number on there. Well, not really an extra number, but you know, there was a number added into it, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that's about it for this video. So take care, have yourselves a good night, and I guess I will see you all with whatever comes next. But specifically for this, we'll see you all in March of 2023. Farewell.
Well, square.